The content you're about to enjoy comes from the archives of The Best You. We're devoted to the very best in personal development, with a platform and resources dedicated to inspiring and changing people's lives. At The Best You, we work with the world's leading writers and trainers on the evolution of the self, and people whose journeys have been affected by their work and words. For more information, go to www.thebestyou.co. Sharon Lechter. As an entrepreneur, best-selling author, philanthropist, international speaker, mentor, licensed CPA and chartered global management accountant, Sharon Lechter is the premier expert for financial literacy and seeker of success. She is the co-author of the international bestseller Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and has written 14 other books in this Rich Dad series and has built an empire into the world's leading personal finance brand. Starting in 2008, she began working with the Napoleon Hill Foundation to help re-energize the brand and has released 3 best-selling books in cooperation with the foundation, including Think and Grow Rich, 3 Feet from Gold, Outwitting the Devil, and Think and Grow Rich for Women. Sharon has also released Save Wisely, Spend Happily in cooperation with the American Institute of CPAs. I've had the pleasure of knowing and working and actually calling her my mentor. She was my mentor for quite some time, and she is just such an amazing individual with phenomenal expertise. I mean, just the Rich Dad, Poor Dad series and what she's managed to achieve over the years, thanks to Sharon Help, is phenomenal. So I am delighted and honored to share this interview that I did live in London a few years ago. It was amazing, and I'm sure, without a doubt, you're going to be enjoying this phenomenal interview with a phenomenal and inspiring lady. Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Bernardo, and welcome to Inspiring People. Today, I have an absolute pleasure of interviewing live Sharon Lechter. Sharon, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernardo.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Sharon, tell me a little bit about your early years and where you grew up.
A long time ago, Bernardo.
Oh, no, it wasn't. Tell me about your early years. What was it?
I grew up in a very middle-class home. We lived between my mother's beauty shop and my dad's car lot. He was career Navy, and they never talked to me about school. I just was driven. So I was in fact, I said, if we can bottle what you did with me as a kid, I'd like to become a billionaire. But I was the proverbial straight-A student, so very popular at test time. And so their dream was that I would get a college education because I was the first generation to go to college, my sister and I. So the day I graduated was the only day I ever saw my dad emotional. And it was pretty special. And they wanted me to get the great career, so I went to Atlanta, Georgia, and started as a CPA, certified public accountant, and was rising very quickly in the ranks. And at the ripe old age of 25, remember at 25 when we know everything? We're authorities on everything, right? I said, if I'm going to work this hard, I should work for myself, not someone else. And about that time, I got the call inviting me to join one of my clients in a company. And I went off to start my entrepreneurial career. That was when at 25. 25. So you just raced along. Yes, it was the worst mistake of my life. It was the worst business decision.
But tell me a little bit about it. Your teachers. Did you have, you were an A student, but was school easy? School was easy for you, but did anyone inspire you? Any teachers in particular that stood out, that helped you?
My 8th grade English teacher, Mrs. Bosch, told me that I was going to be on stage and a great writer. Now, I was into math, so I kind of, forgot what she said until years later. But, and then in high school, several teachers, and it was really college, my sorority house mother said, you need to be on stage. And I said, no, because being a celebrity and being on stage was never on my bucket list. I just wanted to support and help people.
But it's so important having teachers telling you or giving you the right messages in the early years, because in many cases it's the contrary, isn't it? You want to
I was always the teacher's pet, What can I say? But for me, it was always driving to be better. and to give back and to do better and to help others alongside me, and particularly at test time. But it was really for me dedicated to making a difference. When I was a little girl, my father would ask me every night at bedtime, have you added value to someone's life today? And that motto has, I've lost him 10 years ago, but I still ask myself that at night, have I added value to someone's life today?
That's a great question to ask yourself, absolutely. So at the age of 25, you became an entrepreneur.
I did. Went racing off. Worst business decision. Within a few weeks, I realized there was all kinds of corruption in this company. And, I ask, how many of you have made business decisions that were bad, right? A few of you might raise your hand. Those of you at home, raise your hand. And, but Napoleon Hill, author of Think and Grow Rich, says out of every adversity, every failure comes a seed of an equal or greater benefit. And that's when I met Michael Lechter, my husband of 36 years. So I got a great life lesson and a great benefit out of the worst business decision of my life.
Absolutely.
And the rest is kind of history. So.
Great. 36 years. Wow, that's so special. I know that you've always been passionate about impacting and helping people with improving, their IQ from a financial point of view, and potentially finding, the best way of succeeding in business. So, what drove you into that?
Well, my passion was really around our children. We had 3 children, and at young ages, they didn't like to read. Their friends didn't like to read. And so my husband and I met the inventor of the first talking children's book, the books that have the sound strips down the side. Do you remember growing up with those? Little sound strips? Yeah. Well, we started that industry. It was our first year. We had $1 million in sales, then $9 million, then 23, and on the way to $52 million, we sold that company. And it was really exciting to see something grow globally. And it was the strategies that my husband and I used together. Michael is an intellectual property attorney, and we came together and did deals with Disney and Warner Brothers and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles the first time around. And it was a huge success because we aligned with those known brands. But the huge benefit was seeing children excited about reading again. And we sold that company in 1991, and Mike and I moved down to Arizona, which was where we still live. And in 92, our oldest son went off to college. And he came home at Christmas time, 3 months later, $2,500 in debt. I was so angry at him, but I was more angry at myself. And that was December of 1992, and that's really when I dedicated the rest of my career to financial education and really charging the schools, no matter where you are, what country you live in, what language you speak, we are not teaching our young people about money. And money is a life skill. Whether you're the janitor, the CEO, or entrepreneur, we all have to deal with money. And so it has been my passion, and I've worked tirelessly since then. And it was a few years later when my husband called me and said, I met a guy that has this idea for a board game, and that was the birth of Rich Dad.
So you've gone very fast and on the fact of how many things you've achieved by then. And I remember when you told me about the books and you selling that company. So how old were you then when first you launched the books, the first electronic books? How old were you then?
Oh, I have to do some math, see if my math skills are still good. That was 87, so I would have been 33. 33,
okay. And that's when you founded the company. When did you sell it?
We sold it when I was 37.
37, okay, so around 3-4 years, and then you sold it. And then you decided to relax a little bit, look for the new venture?
Yes, moved down to Arizona, and my husband continued to be an intellectual property attorney, so he went down there to start a new career. And so we had a couple of other companies in there in the middle. Not all of my companies have been huge successes, but went ahead and continued moving and building brands and helping people take their companies to the next level, which is a huge passion of mine. And then we founded Rich Dad in 1997.
So the way it happened was Robert Kiyosaki popped into your husband's firm seeking for some advice Share that story.
Yeah, he made an appointment. He had heard from his friends in Hawaii and somewhere else the best intellectual property attorney in the world is Michael Lechter. So he called, made an appointment. My husband had the big corner office with the big wood furniture, the three-piece suits, and here comes this guy in his flip-flops and shorts and Hawaiian shirt with an idea for a game rolled up on a piece of paper drawn out on butcher block paper.
Yep.
And I met Robert at the first beta test. And the playing pieces were different caliber bullets. Great first impression, right? But I loved it because the whole concept was an important one about building assets. So many of us are concentrating on how much our income is, what's our paycheck. And the focus of getting wealthy and becoming rich and becoming financially free is building assets. And that concept is something that most people don't think about. And that was the whole concept of this game was to teach you build, create, or buy assets that generate income. And when that income exceeds your monthly expenses, you're financially free. So that message was the message that I learned growing up in a very entrepreneurial home from my father. And so I helped him because of my experience with the talking books. I helped commercialize the game just as a friend because I felt that it was very important to get the message out. And about halfway through, I said, he wanted to charge $200 for this game called Cash Flow. And I said, well, you may want to, maybe there should be a brochure, something that tells people about it before you ask them to invest $200 in a board game. And so he asked me to be his partner, and we wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad as a brochure for the board game. Most people don't realize that. We thought our brand was Cash Flow. The world was out there. We said cash flow groups everywhere, but the world said, no, your brand is Rich Dad. And so that little brochure that we wanted to give away 30 million copies later, the world said, no, your brand is Rich Dad. So that started 15 books in the Rich Dad series we created together, 1997 to 2007, which is when I chose to leave.
What an amazing journey. How many millions of books and how many different titles?
We had 15 books that we wrote together, and then we had a new series that I started called Rich Dad Advisors, so there were 7 books in that series. And we had 108 countries, 51 languages, and over 30 million books sold. Yeah.
What an amazing story. Amazing story. I remember reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It was one of the first books I read, and it was like, it was a bit too late for me. I think I was already...
It's never too late.
It was late at that time. I'm afraid I was already nosediving down into poverty. But I remember the impact it had and how great it was and how many people read it. And this is a different generation, Sharon, wasn't it?
This was before the internet, Bernardo.
Yep.
We sold all those books. It was by the true viral marketing, people telling each other about it.
Yep.
Someone comes up and talks to me about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'd always ask them, how'd you hear about it? Well, it was my mother, my brother, my aunt, my business partner. And so it truly was a huge success, and not really because of us. It was because of people found value, created value in their own lives, and they shared it with other people.
And obviously, we'll talk a little bit more about myself working with you now. But obviously, one of the things that you teach is the importance of the brand and licensing and understanding what your brand is and making sure you take the right steps to ensure and secure that brand. So there was obviously a lot of thought put into the colors, the wording, everything.
Well, absolutely. With the talking books that I just shared with you, of course, we were writing big royalty checks to Walt Disney. We were to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, to Sesame Street. And I said, this time around, I would like to receive those royalty checks. So we said, we want to build a brand that other people want to license. And in China, they called us the Purple Storm, because at the time, publisher says, well, if it's a business book, it's got to be red, green, or black. And we said, no, that's why we want it to be purple, because we want to be different. We want to stand out. And now when you walk into business book sections, what do you see a lot of?
Yep.
Purple.
Yep.
And so we put our stick in the sand and said we wanted to be different. And we had publishers from all over the world writing us checks and companies wanting to work with us and use our brand. And so the whole concept, which again, the strategy was one that Michael and I, my husband and I designed to really leverage our assets, which is the branding and the messaging of Rich Dad, but leverage it through other established companies around the globe so that the message could build and could permeate society very quickly.
Can you share kind of during the period that you were involved as a CEO of Rich Dad Poor Dad, what kind of turnover you guys had as a company or an organization?
Well, we had, certainly, I owned the company. Robert and I were partners for 10 years, and I was also the CEO of the company during that time. And because a lot of our structure was through licensing, over the time period, we sold probably half a $1 billion worth of retail products around the globe. There were a lot of rip-offs in China, so we figured there were probably 20 million more books sold in China that we didn't know about. But it was for us, it was building the messaging that continued to build and people would share with others. And the game was always out there, and we wanted to expand that as well. But in building the company, because of the licensing structure, we never had more than 15 employees while I was the CEO, because I was working CEO to CEO with other companies. But we would have 5,000 people working for us around the globe. And that's the beauty of the ability to leverage your intellectual property and leverage your content through other existing companies that want to be able to share your message. As long as you make sure you have tight agreements, and this is where my husband would jump in, tight agreements that are specific, measurable, and quality control. Absolutely. He's in the audience, so I see his head.
He's nodding his head. It is said that we live in a world our questions create. And it's true. Those that have succeeded in life, those that stand out, those that have made a difference, those that are inventing, those that are exploring, pushing the boundaries of reality are based on those that have asked themselves empowering questions. In my new book, The Question, Find Your True Purpose, I help you find your true purpose, find your legacy. For more information, go to www.thequestion.co. If you're interested in working with me, contributing to the magazine, maybe speaking at any of our many events around the world, partnering or licensing The Best You, go to www.thebestyou.co. And Sharon, you walked away. You decided one day, this is not for me. I'm not really enjoying it. What happened? What was the turning point for you to realize you wanted to do something different?
Well, we've been partners for 10 years, and it was probably year 7 I started to feel uncomfortable with how he was behaving and things that he was saying on stage that were not congruent with who I was. But every day I would get up and say, is today, this is it good for Sharon? No. Are we still making a difference? Yes. Okay, buck up and keep going. And then one day I got up and said, it's not good for me, and I can't support what the company's doing, because Robert had wanted to go into a franchising model with the company. And the franchise model was great for us, but it was a really bad model for the franchisee. And I said, I just can't do this anymore. And that was March of 2007. And our split up was amicable for about a month, until the valuation came in, or the company, and then it was a difficult time. I never looked back. The message, Bernardo, is to stand in your power and be congruent with who you are, and in alignment with what my personal mission was, and that was to truly create products that were affordable to help people take control of their financial lives. It wasn't about me getting rich. It was about providing the tools that will allow other people to take control of their financial lives. And in that last 6 months, that mission had changed, and he wanted to go into becoming a billionaire himself, and that was no longer my mission. So I made that step. I stood in my power and said, I have to leave. I never looked back, but it was difficult for over a year before we finalized a settlement between us. But I tell people, you have to take a stand. You have to stand in the truth. And you have to close one door sometimes for other doors to open. Because it was 6 months later when I got the call from President Bush asking me to be on the President's Advisory Council.
I know you shared that story. You got home and then all of a sudden the phone starts ringing for all sorts of things.
Yes.
One of the calls was from the White House. You thought it was a flower shop around the corner, wasn't it?
Yes. It really did. On the caller ID, it said White House in 2007. It probably doesn't say that anymore. But I thought it was a florist, because my favorite florist is the White House. And no, it was that other one on the East Coast. So it was, it was a huge honor. And I wouldn't have gotten that call had I still been at Rich Dad.
Yeah.
And so, I implore all of you watching this, if there are doors in your life that you need to close, so other doors of opportunity will open. Because just a few months after that, I was honored to be on the first President's Advisory Council for Financial Literacy. But in March of 2008, I got the call from the Napoleon Hill Foundation. CEO Don Green called me to say, of course, we all know what was happening to the economy at that time, and they wanted to reinvigorate the teachings of Napoleon Hill, the author of Think and Grow Rich.
That must have been such a great honor for you when you get the call. I mean, what an amazing individual.
I was speechless for about a minute and a half. That's pretty long for me. But yeah, unbelievable. I read Think and Grow Rich when I was 19.
Yeah.
And to have built the largest personal finance brand in the world and then to be asked to step into the largest personal development brand, the Napoleon Hill Foundation was just a huge honor. And they are such wonderful people. It was such a turnaround of environment. We talk about the importance of the environment and just incredible people wanting to do good in the world. And so I wrote 3 Feet from Gold, Outwitting the Devil, which was a manuscript they entrusted with me.
Oh, I wanted to ask you about that, Outwitting the Devil.
Yes.
So this was a manuscript that was in one of the Sun. Was it the Sun that actually found it in one of the drawers? Yeah.
Actually, it was Napoleon Hill spent 25 years researching and writing Think and Grow Rich. It was released in 1937.
Yeah.
And when he released it, he was frustrated because even though people know what they're supposed to do to become successful, they don't do it. And he was frustrated. So he said, even in his own life, he says, I know all the stuff I'm supposed to do, and I'm not doing it. Why am I holding back? And so he sat down in just a few months, basically downloaded this book, wrote this book called Outwitting the Devil, and it scared his wife to death, the title. She worked for the Methodist Church, and so she forbid it from being published. It got locked away for 73 years. He died, then she died, then finally, I should not a nice word, Sharon. Then her sister died, who had custody, and it came to the foundation. And it was the month that we released 3 Feet from Gold, my first book with the foundation, when Don called me again. One of those calls, you never know when a call is going to change your life. And he says, I have this manuscript, and I don't know what to do with it. I'd love to have your opinion. It's called Outwitting the Devil, and I'm going, oh.
You say at the time you were the 4th or 5th person to read it?
Right, yeah. I get the manuscript. Of course, it was on a manual typewriter back in the 30s, and Napoleon Hill had his handwritten notes on the manuscript. So it was like I felt this treasure that has been given to me. And just reading it changed my life. And it was amazing to me, the insight that he had. And I do believe there was a greater power at work, a greater power that prevented it from coming out in 1938. Because had it come out in 1938, it may have prevented the incredible growth of Think and Grow Rich as a huge success in its own right. But it talks about, and he says in the book, you can believe I'm talking to the real devil or an imaginary devil, man-made. It's up to you, the reader. But will you derive any benefit from what I share? And he talks about how fear prevents us. Fear of criticism is a huge one today. Fear of poverty, fear of ill health, fear of loss of love. How fear keeps us from fulfilling our own potential. And that much of that fear is self-imposed. And he walks through the 7 steps that you can follow to break through the fear. And the beauty of it, Bernardo, is that when I started working with them, their goal was to reinvigorate the messages of Napoleon Hill. Because at the time, and I used to say young people under 40, now I say young people under 50, didn't really even know who Napoleon Hill was. And 3 Feet from Gold was very well received, but Outwitting the Devil has truly accomplished that. It has become a hugely popular book within the millennials because it's a little in your face, but it talks about the things that really can help you get rid of those blocks and really move forward in a concrete way to create the success that each and every one of us deserves to have. We live in a world of abundance, not a world of scarcity. And yet we're taught in school, we're taught, money's evil, money it doesn't grow on trees. We're taught, very young children, negative comments about money. And so that fear just keeps building within us. And it's in our subconscious. We don't even know it's there. And so once we can start revealing it, one of the things he asks about in your faith, he doesn't criticize faith. He criticizes, were you taught your religion as a religion of faith or a religion of fear? And whoa, that's a big question. All right, were you taught about money from parents who believed in abundance or parents who were afraid? They always said, you can't afford it, I can't afford it. That implants negative comments in your brain every time money comes up. And so the book has been a huge success. In fact, I'm meeting with someone this week. We've got a couple of companies looking at turning it into a major motion picture. So I'm very excited. Very excited.
He was so ahead of his time, wasn't he?
Oh, it's just amazing.
It's amazing. I mean, the readings and a lot of the quotes that people actually think, I don't know, Steve Arcovy, a lot of people that have used it.
They're all his.
They're all his. It's a phenomenon. Now, it must have been a great honour also when you had the opportunity to write, looking at how to embrace and help women with Think and Grow Rich for Women. Tell us about that and how that came around.
Another huge honor, just incredible. For many, many years, so Bernardo, when I started my career in Atlanta, I was only the fourth woman ever hired in the Southeast. So the sexual discrimination, that term didn't even exist. We just we went with a little bow ties, hair in a bun, pantsuits, right? We just knew we had to work harder. And my whole philosophy has always been the steps to success are the same for men and women. And, buck up, women. Let's just do what we need to do. And when we released Outwitting the Devil, I was starting to get frustrated with the number of women out there really complaining and criticizing all the time, criticizing you guys. I love working with men. I love men. And it's when men and women come together, we get the greatest results. And so Think and Grow Rich, the original book, was written at a time when there were no women in business. And so I talked to the Napoleon Hill Foundation. I said, I think it's time we look at those tried and true principles, those same steps to success, but look at them through the eyes of successful women. Because even though the steps are the same, you and I tend to approach them differently. Mm-hmm. It's just biology. Mm-hmm. And so I got the incredible honor to write Think and Grow Rich for Women that honors Napoleon Hill's original concepts. But then I interviewed women who created their success using those principles. And then I have over 300 women that I highlight in the book, from history, current, young women, older women, women that have passed. But it's was an honor to bring all that wealth of content together to share with women, because women tend to have a lack of self-confidence. One of the biggest issues, women business owners. In America, the stat is only 2% of women-owned businesses exceed $1 million in revenue. I'm out to change that number. It's got to go up. That number is still very low in the UK as well. But women are starting businesses faster than men all over the globe. Women are the answer for the economy in the future, and we have that power. We're going to inherit $30 trillion over the next 40 years. It's our responsibility. We need to learn how to manage money. We need to understand it. We need to be able to know how to employ it, have it grow, and reinvest it into society, and to build that financial future for our families. But we also need to acknowledge that stop complaining and criticizing. Napoleon Hill, as you said, law of attraction originated with Napoleon Hill, not the book The Secret. And if we're out there complaining all the time, what are we going to attract?
Absolutely.
Negative. Yeah. So let's celebrate the progress that women have made. And that's the whole thesis behind the book, was to celebrate how far we've come. Yes, there is still far to go. And to celebrate the men who have helped us along the way, so that more men will step up and support that as well.
Yeah. I'm all up for that, I agree. Absolutely. More women in power and taking responsibility. It'll be a much better place. Now, obviously, you've been in the publishing world for a long time, and I know a lot of the things, and you help people in giving them advice on how to get your book published. Mm-hmm. How much has it changed, and what's your advice moving forward for someone who wants to get their book published or wants to start getting out there?
Dramatically is the answer to your first question. It's amazing how much publishing has changed. And in fact, one of my most recent things that gets me angry, is the fact that there's a lot of people out there doing publishing seminars that are giving misinformation. Anybody looking for support in publishing, make sure the person you're learning from knows what they're talking about, because there's been dramatic changes. It's much more difficult to get a large publisher to pick you up. There's only 5 major publishers left, and it's no longer as essential, because it used to be you needed shelf space. So when we did Rich Dad, like I said, there was no Amazon, there was no online purchasing. I shipped the first 1 million books off my dining room table. It truly was, and at the time when remember fax machines? Yeah, that's how we got our orders, fax machines. And so today it's so much easier. And I talk and I counsel everyone, every professional, whether you are an entrepreneur or a professional, write a book. It's never been easier to become a published author. It gives you instant credibility. Not just an expert, but you become an authority in your field. And so truly it's the new business card. And make sure you're getting the right advice from the right people, because publishing is a way for you to expand your horizon. It's a way for you to impact more people, leveraging your ability, your talent, your expertise, and your wisdom.
I've got so much to talk to you about. You were just recently at the House of Lords for the National Mentorship Day. I'm honoured to work with you in your mentorship program. Why is mentorship so important, and what do you try to do within your mentorship programs?
Well, one of the things that you provide at the Best You is access to people that can support you in your journey. In school, we're taught to do everything on our own. And if you share ideas, it's considered cheating and you get in trouble. Well, in the real world, business is a team sport. And it's so important. The essence of success is finding the people around you to support you. Have people on your team who are strong where you are weak. Make sure you surround yourself with people who have been where you want to go. Have a mentor who can open a door and can see your business and work on your business with you. So many entrepreneurs are so busy in their business, they're actually creating a job for themselves, not a business. And so you have to kind of step out of it and work on your business. And the best way to do that is with a mentor who has been where you want to go, because they can help steer you around the potholes and open those doors of opportunity, open the Rolodex to you to help you expand your business more quickly.
To find out more about our latest projects, get a free coaching lesson, or download my book, go to www.bernardo-moya.com.
Because I'm involved and I've been working with you for the last 6 or 7 months, I know you take real passion in helping us all achieve these things. What would you say are the best insights when it comes down to succeeding? I mean, we're in the business of education, personal, professional growth. What would you say the best assets, or what are the best, things that people could focus on in order to grow in the business?
Couple of things. Your most important asset is right here, those 6 inches between your ears. The greatest amount of value in Fortune 500 companies right now, 80% is intangible, and it's from intellectual property. And that has leveled the playing field for each and every one of us. A small business owner has equal amounts of opportunity to succeed as a large company. And so but even as a small business owner, there are essential components that you need to build structure into your company and make sure you have systems, and so that your small company can grow to become a big company. And that's where many entrepreneurs stop. They don't get the mentorship. They're trying to do it on their own. Being an entrepreneur is a very lonely field. And so you have to surround yourself with people who are your champions, who can help support you get to where you need to go. But building in those systems in your business, have the right legal structure. Make sure that you're set up. Make sure you have the right advisors, the accounting systems, your marketing, your communication, your business systems. That's where the greatest value that allows you to leverage and scale your business. It's not your product or your service. It's the foundation around that product or service that allows you to scale and truly become successful. And most entrepreneurs just want the fun stuff. They just want the product and the service, so they don't build that foundation. And that's what's so important. Those are the companies that will succeed greatly.
Well, you were saying entrepreneurs, but obviously anyone that is in the business,
yes,
of personal professional growth is
yes,
they're their own entrepreneurs. And that's the thing, it's down to having the right foundations. What would you say your best assets are? Because you've obviously got quite a few.
Well, I have to say my husband, since he's in the audience. Well, I think tenacity. As I said, my father, I had great drive growing up, and it was every day I want to make sure that I'm contributing and adding value to people's lives. But I've been so fortunate that throughout my life, I've had people around me who truly inspire me and challenge me and can continue allowing me to search for the best me. And just in the last year or so, we started the Master Mentors program, and I'm so thrilled that you're part of it. But it really has, most of my career has been one to many, because through books or through speaking, through television, you're impacting a lot of people at one time. And I've always done some mentoring, but now we've actually concentrated, Mike and I are really working with individuals to help them take their business to the next level. And we've gotten so much more than we've given. It's such a joy to truly see the success and see just the glory in the eyes of someone when they have a win as a result of learning something new. That's the greatest gift.
Well, you have many assets. You're so knowledgeable. You've got so much wisdom. You're patient. You're quiet, but you can be very feisty and get your message across, which is great. So people have to listen to you. You've said over the years, you've surrounded yourself and worked with so many greats and shared the stage with so many greats. Who has inspired you, tremendously, and who's inspiring you now?
Well, as I said, I read Think and Grow Rich at 19, so Napoleon Hill has always been a great inspiration to me. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Ireland with Brian Tracy, and I just adore him. He's, in our industry, there are a lot of people that have great messages, but not all of them walk the talk. And it's very important to me that I surround myself with people who walk the talk. And Brian, he and Barbara, his wife, they've been married for 37 years, so we didn't realize that when we were sharing dinner. But he is just a stellar gentleman, and I value, he's got great content. And I think from a standpoint of our mentors change. A mentor who gets you just one particular station in your business may not be the right mentor to get you to the next level. And so it's important that we never stop seeking those challenges in life and make every single day count.
We're working now together on kind of my project, and mm-hmm. we're exploring the idea of what are you personally here for, socially, mm-hmm. personally, professionally, and globally. And one of the things that we've been talking about, or I've been sharing with you, is that my thoughts that there's a lot of people in the industry who are here for the right reasons, but then there's a lot of others, as you say, that aren't necessarily walking the talk. But I also think that we have a responsibility for making a difference because we're so lucky with technology. Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts regarding people taking responsibility to make the world a better place?
What a big question that is. Well, I'll use one of my taglines because every individual is either a master of their money or a slave to it. There's no in between, and everyone can identify themselves as one or the other. And we have become a society of entitlement. We've become a society of waiting for someone else to take care of us. We've got way too many victims mentality. And so my goal, my charge, the way we can turn our economy around is through entrepreneurship. The most successful businesses solve a problem or serve a need. And it's us taking that initiative and knowing that if it's not me, who? Stand up and take responsibility for yourself. And if you're an employee, there's nothing wrong with being an employee. But with every paycheck, it's not what you do for your paycheck that's important. It's what you do with your paycheck. Are you taking your paycheck and investing it into your future? Are you using it to buy, build, or invest in assets? Or are you using it to blow? There was just an article I read in the paper here yesterday. Since 2000 to 2014, millennials have increased the amount of money they spend at restaurants by 24%. That's a worrisome number. We have to pay attention to what we're doing to ourselves financially because it's crippling. Once we get into such debt, it's hard to get out. But we have the ability, each and every one of us have the ability today to make different decisions. And with those different decisions is how we're spending every dollar and how we are creating our future. And each one of us are an expert with nobody else has walked in your shoes. You're an expert, and you have the ability and the responsibility to share your experiences with others less fortunate so that you can help them open doors of opportunity.
And that was going to lead me to my next question about what would you say to someone who's struggling financially? Would that pretty much cover it?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's money. The first step is to stop and say, where am I? Just determining where you are, even if it's a number you don't like, maybe it's a scary number, but even just doing that gives you a beginnings point, and it gives you the opportunity to start seeing progress. And so the first step is figure out where you are financially, good, bad, or indifferent. Know where you are, and that can help you chart the course to start in today. Don't worry about yesterday. You cannot change yesterday, but you can change today.
And do you believe that's one of the main reasons why entrepreneurship is so important?
Oh, absolutely. Entrepreneurship, whether even as an employee, you can be an entrepreneur in mind and in spirit, because that means taking responsibility for yourself. I'm an employee who sees the opportunity to improve their position by coming up with a new idea and sharing it with their boss. That's entrepreneurship. So it's an entrepreneurship mindset, and that's taking responsibility and creating opportunities that will improve the way you work, your efficiency, and creating an opportunity to build value in the business is an entrepreneurial mindset.
And part of your journey has been to try and make sure that this is taught in schools and universities.
Yes, I've had great success, not great enough. I did get the law changed in the state of Arizona that now high school graduation, you have to have personal finance in order to graduate from high school. But in the U.S., every state is different, so you have to do it in each state. When I was on the President's Advisory Council, my son, remember, got into credit card debt because when he went to college the first day, they were offering free pizza, free money, free T-shirt, free money, and so he was signing up like all his friends. And in 2009, we did pass the Credit Card Act that prevents colleges from soliciting kids on campus. So those were things, I can't take credit for the law, but I can say I was a pretty squeaky wheel about it. So.
But isn't it amazing that these things are still not taught at schools?
Well, right now, a big issue, not just in America, here as well, is credit card debt. College debt, student loan debt.
Yeah.
And so I'm working on a bill right now with representative from my state that if we're going to subsidize student loans to these students, shouldn't we require them to take some financial education? Common sense, right? So we have a bill in Congress now that will do that, but given the current state of politics, I'm not sure it'll get through this year. But it again is something that I truly want to wake people up. It's just common sense. Money is a life skill. And if you're a parent, it's not being taught to your children in school. So make sure you're starting to teach them elements. Because as parents, many of us don't want our kids to know that we ourselves have some financial issues. So find an opportunity to teach them in a way that's safe and giving them the opportunity to learn to make mistakes and recover them. And I often say today we put our kids in these bubbles and they never learn how to make a mistake or how to recover from it. And something that we must do, and we must teach our kids about money because it's becoming a bigger issue, not a smaller issue.
One of your personal mottos is not why, but why not?
Well, dialing back my clock to when I was in Atlanta and I had that call from my client offering me to go into the world of entrepreneurship. We talk about finding your why, your passion. It's very important for us to know what our triggers are and what our passion is. But for me, it was at that point in time when I had my client offer me to go, I sat with my yellow legal pad, and I'm sure you probably have done this with the pros and the cons, and you stay with a fast, secure job or go into this unknown world of entrepreneurship. And I did my list and it didn't help me at all. I could have argued both sides. But my hand kind of took off and wrote why not across the top. And why not has really been my lifelong philosophy. Why not do something different? Why not be the one to change what needs to be changed. If not you, who? Why not you? Why not take that road less traveled and put your stick in the ground and say, I'm going to make a difference with the people that I care about. So.
Thank you. Now, you've been very supportive of the Best You and for the years to come. Why is personal development so important?
Well, many people ask what my definition of wealth or success is. And my definition of success has nothing to do with numbers. It's really how you feel about yourself when you look in the mirror. And it has nothing to do with your physical reflection. Have you become the person that you are proud of? Are you proud of who you are? And success is, you can be rich at $30,000 income. If your living expenses are 20 and your income is 30, you're financially free, right? So again, you have to pay attention to the definition of success about who you are, what kind of human you want to be. And each and every one of us, what I love about the Best You is you're providing resources that are available to people that they can get in the comfort of their own home, as well as into an environment like this or an open venue. And it's so important. No one is going to take action in your life but you. Each and every one of you. You have the opportunity to make a change in your life today, tomorrow, the next day. And it's companies like yours, Bernardo, that's making the resources available, because the thing that I need today may not be the same thing that someone else does. But you're providing a whole arsenal of opportunities for people to find the information that they need to succeed. And it doesn't need to cost you $100,000 a year. Just start. Just get started. That's buy a book and then start attending seminars that can help you. But don't just do that. So many people I see at the same seminars over and over and over again. You have to take action in your life. This, chart a course, take action, promise yourself. Just the first step is usually the hardest. And then the next one's a little easier. And all of a sudden you're going to wake up and you're going to look back and go, wow, I'm standing a little taller. I feel a little more self-confident. Look at what I've done. My goodness, I can do it. And if I can do it, everyone can do it. And that's the gift of personal development. Is all about what's in here. It's not what's in your wallet. Because if you don't change what's in here, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not an expert. Easy for her to say, easy for him to say. I've spent a lot of time in those seats. And it's an issue of taking action. Every one of you at home deserves to be right here being interviewed by none other than Bernardo.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think that's one of the things. The things is that there's a lot of people that, we see these seminar junkies, as you said, that do that, but then they don't necessarily take action. And people don't really understand that change is simply, it's growing, it's evolving. You have to welcome change. The moment you change your mindset and start looking at change as something good, what's next, what's going to happen is you start evolving. And so you've done a lot of things, Sharon, and you're only getting started from what I can see. What would you have done differently, if anything, in life? And what advice would you give yourself to a younger version of a Sharon Lechter?
Well, that's a great question. I've been asked that a lot, and I usually come up with a different answer every time, because it's like, one of the things I teach, particularly women, is that not to try and recreate the past, because women, we're really good at guilt and shame and carrying it with us. And only, they shoulda, coulda, wouldas in our life. We need to outlaw shoulda, coulda, wouldas, because we are here where we are today. There are things in my life, as you know, we lost our son in December of 2012, and that changed my life forever. And every day is precious.
Thank you for sharing that. In many years from now, I can only imagine what your legacy is, but it's an absolute honor to have interviewed you. And if there is anything that's going to be there at the end of your journey, what would you like that message to be?
Well, your other interview, she was talking about her headstone, and I was in China doing an interview, and it was being translated, and a young man got up and asked me a question, and the audience started booing him because I had no idea what he asked. My interpreter said, "You don't need to answer it." And I said, "Well, what's the question?" And he said, he had asked me, what do you think is the meaning of life? And so the audience felt that was a very rude question for him to be asking this American. Didn't bother me. I said, well, I'm happy to answer the question. And it's the same kind of thing about on the headstone is what my dad taught me is I added value to someone's life. Isn't that what we all want?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
For more information, go to www.thebestyou.co.